So we've been doing it for about 2 years. Every month we get a local influencer to come share their story and have a fireside chat. The Conductor is a partnership between UCA and Startup Junkie. So I'm the CEO of the Conductor. We run a number of programs like this all the time, a lot. So we do free one-on-one consulting, we do networking and educational events. I see heads nodding of people that we work with on a regular basis. So our website is arconductor.org if you want to learn more about what we offer and things like that. Tonight, we're really, really excited to have Bunny Adcock. I have been counting. When I first started growing, I was like, we've got to get Bunny. And so I'm really excited. And Bunny, I was telling my husband, I was like, man, I'm kind of nervous about Thursday. And he's like, what? So I always meet with the presenter beforehand, and I was like, well, Bunny and I met for 2 hours, and we only got to when he was 27 years old. That's right. So, we might go a little bit over on time tonight. But anyway, we have a Q&A for about 40 minutes, and then a 20-minute, I ask him questions for 40 minutes, and then I open it up to the audience for open Q&A. So please write down your questions, think about what you want to ask, and definitely post on social media and let people know what you're doing here. Our hashtag is FullSteamAR, and our Twitter is @AR_conductor. So, we're going to get started. Bunny Adcock is the Vice Chairman and on the Board of Directors for Centennial Bank and Home Bank Shares, Inc. He serves on the UCA Board of Trustees, and he's a past president of the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, and just many other things. I have an entire 10-page, I kid you not, document of his life. So we're going to get started. Bunny, could you just tell us about yourself? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, before I do, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here. One of the things that I want to say before we get started is how much I appreciate what you and Jeff are doing. I'm a real supporter of their programs, and the reason is for economic development. Like one of the things that Jeff did, was and helped me with it was Cadron.
Capital.
Yeah, Capital. Then the one before that was Cadron Creek Capital, I think before that. And I've invested in those programs. What we do, that's where we put our money in it. Our personal money goes into it, and we finance entrepreneurs. And it's just really a great, great program. And what you are doing with all your programs are entrepreneurship. And let me see if I can put this into a context where it really makes sense. I know several years ago, I was listening to a television show. Steve Jobs, with Apple was on there. And someone asked him the question, the interview said, what do you fear? And by that, it said, do you fear like Microsoft and went through all the big giant companies? And he said, no. They said, what do you fear? He said, I fear a kid in a garage with an idea. That's what entrepreneurship's about. And as I thought about that, and I remember studying like General Motors, giant corporations, but they don't create any new jobs. I mean, they're great. We appreciate, glad to have them here, but they're not creating any new jobs. It's the entrepreneurs who come in with these great ideas. That's what makes our nation grow and our economies grow. And that's why it's so important here in Conway, the work that you're doing. And that's the reason I support it so hard and so strong. That you're helping those kids in the garage with an idea. You're helping them to develop those ideas and come up with things that are going to be revolutionary, things that are going to change for us and create a lot of jobs here in town. So anyway,
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Now to answer your question, I grew up in southeast Arkansas, not Dermot, but McGee, because I had somewhere that I introduced this weekend from McGee, and she said, oh, that really makes me mad. I'm not from McGee, I'm from Dermot, 10 miles away, I think. So I grew up in the Delta. I had a long conversation this week with someone from AETN, actually, about the Delta. And what happened is when I graduated from college, I went to the University of Arkansas, I fully expected to return there. I expected to be in farming, to be in banking perhaps. My family's in business, been in some of the businesses. And my father sat me down and said, don't come back. I went, what? And he said, the Delta's seen its best days. It's over. And I was stunned by it. And I said, where should I go? Well, both my parents went to Hendricks. And so they said, move to Conway. So that's how I got here. And obviously my father was right. Because you look at what's going right now. I know I was reading last week about the market, Fayetteville, Rogers, Bentonville, the way they're going. They're outgrowing us a little bit. But right behind that, Central Arkansas, and then after that, there's not any growth in Arkansas. It's really these areas. So it was an excellent decision on his part. I'm glad he directed me here. Of course, it's been great because I've been involved in the community, involved in Conway, and so it's been very good to me.
Awesome. So what was Conway like when you moved here?
Oh, well, my wife Carol laughs about it, said it was about 10 blocks square. I moved here in 70, she moved here in 71. It was starting to come about. You had Guy Murphy, you had Bob Nabholz, and I'm going to leave a lot of people out when I go down this road. But they were people who were looking at Tom Wilson, who was my competitor, the head of the Conway Development Corporation. They realized that the world was about to change. And they were out recruiting, and like one of the companies he brought was Kimberly-Clark. And you know, we're fighting now to try to keep Kimberly-Clark here. And a number of others. They're the ones who created the industrial park. You see, that's the first industrial park in Arkansas. A lot of people don't realize that. They were the innovators of their time. And so they were starting to do some things that would make this town grow. One of the things that I would mention that was real important in Conway, I went to my boss, Cletty Harper, who was the president of the other bank. That was First National Bank. And I said to him one day, and I probably shouldn't have said this, but I did. I said, Mr. Harper, everybody in town talks about Mr. Wilson, since he's the president of the Conway Development Corporation, how he gets all the accounts of everybody down in the industrial park, and we don't. You know, why don't you take him on fighting? Like that, he probably shouldn't have done it. But anyway, he looked at me and he said, I could do that, but would why? And I won't name the town, but he named 2 or 3 other towns that are just split in half where nobody can get along. And he said, I could do that, and that's what would happen. But he said, what I found out is if I will back him and work with him, that we'll all get along together, and we'll get our share of business. And he was right. And then after we built the big white building over there in 1974, which is now Regions, we moved ahead of First State, and they never called us after that, even though they had, at that time, all the accounts in the industrial park. Now, let me also say, a few years later, when I was head of business development, I got every one of those accounts over to our bank. Brought them all, so. But I applaud those people because Conway was just starting to start growing. We were just starting to, and a lot of people, like I say, could have fought with one another, but put their personal feelings aside to work for the good of the community.
Interesting. So talk about your first job when you got to Conway.
Okay, when Mr. Harper hired me, he said, I'm starting you at the bottom. So I started, in those days, you didn't start out like these, some of these big shots back here did, you know, where they come in as a senior officer, there he is over there, you know, their first day on the job. You know? Yeah, he got paid big, he big shot his first day on the job. Back then, you started at the bottom, see. So I started out as a bank teller. Now, let me tell you one great advantage of being a bank teller. I'm standing there one day, and this really cute girl walks in, and I got her to come over to my window. And I said, can I help you, ma'am? Got her over. And of course, back then, you didn't have all the confidentiality stuff you have now. So I went back and looked up her balance. Lord have mercy. She made a lot of money. She was a university professor. I'm a bank teller. I fell in love the minute I saw her balance. And I proposed to her right on the spot. That was 45 years ago, right, Mom? So you see some of the advantages, you know, starting at the bottom of the bank. So that's where I started. I started at the bottom, but I did get a wife out of it. Awesome. Who made a lot more money than I did.
So what did you do after that job?
Okay, after that, Carol greatly influenced my life because being from McGee, always living in Arkansas, you know, I did not know anything about international at all, not one single thing, nothing. Carol, being a French-Spanish professor, did, and she was very, very much involved in international activities and got me very interested in it. And so in 1976, Governor David Pryor asked Carol and I to go to Europe to create the European Office of the Governor in Brussels, Belgium. And so that was 1976. We moved over there, started office. Of course, it was really a challenge because, I mean, they literally just said, we think Brussels is that way. There was no support, there was no backup, no nothing. So I had to go find an office, I had to hire people, had to do things like that in a foreign culture, foreign language, and immediately started traveling. And so I was traveling every inch of Europe. And what I was doing there, it was part of then the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. And what I was trying to do is bring industry here to locate or to find trade deals for Arkansas companies who wanted to sell their products in Europe. So that was 1976, and that was the next job.
And you were 26 at
Yeah.
the time?
Yeah.
So so
Yeah, I was awfully young.
where did you go after that job?
Well, I see, we were there for 3 years, and then Governor Pryor runs for the United States Senate. And he gets elected to the Senate, and we get a new governor named Bill Clinton. Well, I was not in that faction, so I got fired. And so after that, I moved back to Conway. I mean, it's just that's part of the reality of it. And I worked here for a year, and then the guy who was my boss, who actually had hired us, sent us over there, very, very, very dear friends, a guy named Frank White. So Frank decided to run for governor, and he asked me if I would help run the campaign, which I did. As I think I mentioned to you a couple times, I debated Hillary Clinton several times that year, because like Frank and Bill Clinton would be off one part of the state somewhere, and there'd be another political rally in a different part of the state, and they'd ask me if I would. Frank said, "Could you go over there and represent me?" And I said, "Sure." So I'd be on the podium with Hillary, and there was a couple times when I probably could have gotten in a lot of trouble with the things that I said, and that I was lucky to get out alive out of that one. And lo and behold, we won. We beat Bill Clinton. I guess it was his only defeat. And that was in 1980, so I went in like as the chief of staff to the governor. And I served in that capacity for 2 years. I was legislative liaison, and I really got to understand the legislative process by working there with him 2 years. And then after 2 years, Bill ran for re-election. He was re-elected. I got fired for the second time. And then I went to the Reagan White House. I was a lobbyist for President Reagan administration. I worked all the southern states for the president, did that for a year. And that was crazy. I mean, I would leave here at Sunday at noon and get back home maybe Friday at midnight. And I'd had enough of that. I mean, that was just travel. And I'll tell you one story that kind of sums it up. I'm in the state capitol one day, and I have the state senator, and I'm asking him about a bill that I've introduced. And I said about this bill, and going through it with him, he looked and said, "What in the hell are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, such, and then I'm in Texas. I'm in Austin, Texas. That's Louisiana. I'm sorry. I got my days confused. It was because I was traveling too much. I couldn't keep it all straight. Yeah. And so I said, I want out of that. About that time, we had a president of our bank that resigned, and one of my contemporaries came in as president, and he asked me if I would come back to the bank. And that was like 1983 that I went. Again, the big white building right across the street, which is now Regions. Over there, that was First National Bank at the time, and so I came back to the bank, and that's when I was business development.
So I have a follow-up about, were you really interested in politics, or how did that trajectory happen?
Yeah, I really was. Well, one of the things that helped me a lot, we had an organization back then, it was called the JCs. You don't have it anymore, but back then, I grew it, when I was state president, I grew from 6,000 to a little over 10,000 members. So we were in every single community in Arkansas. So I knew young people in every community, and you can imagine how valuable I was to a political candidate. And not only did I just know people, they were active people who were really getting up and going and doing all, running all the civic projects in town and so forth like that, all the young leaders. And so it was a great organization, and by me getting involved in that, first of all, I had to do a lot of public speaking. I had to learn to manage and understand I'm 23, 24 years old doing all that. I'm the youngest state president in the history. Then the next year, I was vice president of the United States JCs and traveled all over the world making speeches. And so it helped me a tremendous amount to grow in that capacity. So yeah, obviously I had a natural inclination for politics.
And that's the Junior Chamber of Commerce?
That's the Junior Chamber of Commerce.
So on that note, do you recommend young people to be civically involved?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the thing that no one understood about the JCs was the original purpose of it, and that is to give you an opportunity to try things. That's really what it's about. Like making speeches, running projects, being in charge, having a budget, doing plans, laying out how you're going to do it, trying to motivate people to come to help you on the Easter egg hunt, which was a big project we had here in Conway. Parades that we had here. We used to put flags up and down all the streets on every major holiday. Projects like that. And so, yes, I strongly recommend it.
Awesome. So, and this is a little bit embarrassing, but I'm going to share it. You have worked for so many governors. Whenever I was like studying your resume and everything, I was like, I'm gonna have to do my Arkansas history research for a minute. I have a whole list of all the governors of Arkansas and the time periods that they were in office, because you worked for almost all of them. So is that, I mean, were you ever interested in running for office?
Yes, until that term with Frank. And I can kind of tell you the day, I was way up in North Arkansas. It was the 4th of July. We spent the night in Jonesboro. And I know I was up at like at 4:30 or 5 in the morning. And I was in the Holiday Inn, and I went to the kitchen to try to get something to eat. And I remember the people in there were shocked when I walked in. They said, we're not open yet. Anyway, I had to get the governor up, get him ready and to go, got him in the car. We drove up to I can't remember, right on the state border up there. And that part of the state up there, 4th of July, is like, they're like in the Midwest. It's a big deal. They have festivals and parades, and they go all out the 4th of July. So here I am up there, and finally got there at 8 o'clock in the morning with the governor, and to put him in a car to be in the parade. Okay, get him out of there, run him to the next town, go in there, and this always happens. They have a lunch, but they only have 2 places for the governor and his wife. The aide does not get fed. Okay, we got through there. I'm going to another town that night and to another town up there. I mean, we ended at Marmaduke. So we ended at Marmaduke, fly back. The first bite I had that day was at a Wendy's in Little Rock at 10:30 that night. And I said, this ain't so glamorous. I don't think I'm going to do this the rest of my life. Because I began to understand what it's like. And the pressures of the governor's office. I mean, a long meeting for a governor is 15 minutes. That's a long meeting. And you just got person after person after person, especially in the legislative session. You don't even have that much. You may have 2 minutes, so that's about all you can afford for a meeting. And so it's just all day long, just as fast as you can move. And so it's a real pressure-filled occupation.
And he never got to be with his kids at all.
Do what?
He never got to be with his 3 kids, remember?
Yeah, you never got to be with your family at all. Your family's just completely out of the picture. So it's a lot of sacrifice when you serve in the public arena like that. So I took a long look at it and I said, nah, this is not for me.
Okay, so then you're back into banking.
Back in banking.
So that was after you were the lobbyist, right? And you were back, you were the executive vice president for marketing. So talk about that time of your life. What were you doing?
Well, that was a sort of a peaceful and quiet time in my life, really, because that's where I came back, where I did the business development work, was very, very involved in the community. I'll tell you what, I kind of skip to the end of it would be the easiest part, because I did that 12 or 13 years. We were involved in real estate, did a lot of real estate investments, so forth like that. We had merged our bank with First Commercial out of Little Rock, which was we were the 3rd bank to merge in. We grew to 35 banks, and I'll be quite frank, I made a lot of money out of that deal, a lot of money, because I kept buying the stock. We were growing, and it did very, very, very well. So that was a good time for me economically. And then what happened is we merged with Regions, and that is a real shocker. We had been through, imagine, as I mentioned, we merged with 35 banks, so there's nothing new to us, except we were the ones doing the merging. We were merging in with a much, much larger organization. And I'll never forget, we walk in, I'm on the board of directors of the bank, we're sitting around the table, and the president calls a meeting order and said the first order of business is you're all fired. No, we're the directors. You don't fire us. Now, maybe the people down on the first floor, but not us. He said, no, you're all fired. And he said, we'll have a dinner out at the country club in 2 weeks and give you a plaque. Because Regions doesn't believe in local boards. So the next day, I got in my car and I drove out to one of my fellow board members, a guy named Johnny Allison. And that's where I sat down with Johnny. And it was so funny, I was so nervous. It really was. Because Johnny and I weren't that close at that time. I didn't know how he'd react to this. So I sat there and I talked to him about the weather. What do you think the Razorbacks are going to do? You know, he knew that's not why I was out there. Finally said, what do you want? I said, you want to start a new bank? And he said, yeah, I think so. I think I did. And he had been offered a position on Regions' board, which would be quite an accomplishment. It was the 25th largest bank in the United States. At the time, that would have been a great honor for him. But he said, no, that's not for me. That's not what I want to do. And actually, what our intent was when we started that bank, and that would have been about 18 years ago, 1998, when we started it, what we thought we would do was just be a community bank. We thought, okay, we'll be Conway, maybe Morrilton, maybe Russell, something like that, maybe North Little Rock, Cabot, and that'll be about the extent of it. We'll just have a nice little, maybe $1 billion, something like that, and that'll be it. Well, lo and behold, we outgrew that just a little bit. We're now 14 billion, and so it has grown to be quite a successful organization. 2,000 employees now, and so yeah, we're very large and headquartered here in Conway still. So yeah, it wasn't what we anticipated when we started it, but that's what came of that. But anyway, I kind of jumped over some stuff there.
How did you know, I mean, did you have someone advising you how did you know how to make those decisions in banking?
Well, first of all, it was easy because, like in my case, for the first time in my life, I wasn't affiliated with the bank. And so, and plus both of us had been involved in banking for many, many years. So it wasn't like we're going to something we hadn't done. We knew what we were getting into. Also, now remember at that time, there were a lot of people who were at the old First National Bank of Conway who were worried about their futures, if they were going to be terminated or not. And so they very much were when they heard what Johnny and I were going to do, were calling. Take me, pick me, pick me. You know, I want to go with you, I want to go with you. So we had the pleasure and the advantage of being able to bring a lot of our staff over. So it really wasn't hard. We sort of just moved everything across the street. And so Randy Sims came over as our CEO. A lot of y'all know Randy. And then Randy Mayer's our chief financial officer, and so forth and so on. So a lot of the people just came on and did basically the same thing they were already doing, just on a lot smaller scale, just a little bitty community bank at that time. Matter of fact, I'm looking through some pictures right now. We're about to do some kind of documentary, and they wanted me to get one. The first thing we did was we went to a mobile home in front of Kroger. And Johnny, because remember, he's in the mobile home business, he had us set it up, the two of us. Now, so here I am in camo after crawling around with a shovel underneath that thing, putting the sewer in. I mean, so we put it in. Of course, the word spread all over town. People were coming from everywhere to look at this, to see Buddy and Johnny actually setting up a mobile home out there. We have all this crowd out there, and Johnny pulls me out from under the thing. I'm covered in mud, and he said, I want y'all to see something. This is the first honest day's work Bunny's ever done in his life.
So I just read today, actually, that Home Bank shares won first place on the Forbes list of America's best banks. I mean, what do you attribute that success to?
Oh, I would have to really attribute a lot of it to Johnny. He is one of the most brilliant people that I have ever worked with in my entire life. One thing I learned about him very early on, he has photographic memory. He doesn't forget anything. I remember one day he sent me down to North Little Rock to attend one of our board meetings down there. He couldn't go. And he got me back and he said, okay, tell me, and he started looking at all these ratios. What were they on this? What was this? What was this? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't remember all that stuff. I said, can you? I've been kind of smart with him. And he said, okay, you want to know like in July? He went back 6 months before and named every single number on all those pages. I said, what am I dealing with here? This guy's smart. So extremely, extremely smart. Has had tons of experiences in business. He doesn't forget anything. Has a sense where he can read people. I've never seen anything like it. It's uncanny. It's like he can read people's mind. He can do that. So he has all these many, many skills that he brings into play. And then what he does is he is a taskmaster. I mean, he drives hard at us holding expenses down. And we're one of the best in the United States. We're probably the lowest in expenses. You know, our expense ratio is 33% to 30%, where most banks are 50 and 60%. And what it is, it's the way you say that, it's what does it cost to make a dollar? Most banks it costs 60, 65 cents, cost us 30 cents. I mean, we are that conservative. And so, and that, I attribute that to him. And he's hard, he drives hard, which is hard, but we're publicly traded, and I know there's people in this room that own our stock. And you want us to do that. You want us to bring you home a good return on your investment. And that's our responsibility as directors to do that, and that's what we try to do.
Awesome. So whenever we talked, you said that you were retired for a week when you were 35.
That's true. I left that part out. What happened, I decided, I was very fortunate again with investments in farming, And I'm still very involved in farming. I'm cotton farming and soybean farming, even till this day. And we had real estate here in town and other things, so I said, I'll retire early. So I retired at about 45. And then I stayed retired 1 week, and then that's when, if y'all remember, Governor Huckabee came in. Jim Guy Tucker was forced to resign, and Governor Huckabee, so he called me and asked me to come in. And that's when he asked me if I would take over the Arkansas Development Finance Authority. I was Governor Huckabee's first appointee. And it was a very difficult position. The first day there, I had to fire 6 employees. And the agency was just divided in half. It was a horrible situation. They didn't speak to each other, didn't like each other. So I started having ice cream socials and trying to get people to speak to one another, to be civil to one another. One of the people who left, the one that left before I got there, before I fired him, was the chief financial officer, and he took all of our records. Now here I am running a $1 billion organization with no records, none. I remember one day my chief financial officer walked in to me about 2 weeks after we'd been there, and he said, "You're not gonna believe what I found today." And I said, "What'd you find?" He said, $24 million. I said, "Oh, okay." 24 million, yeah. We had no, do you understand what I'm saying? We had no records, nothing. We didn't know what we were doing. And that we're doing all the low to moderate income lending in the state, all the apartment lending, a lot of the apartments here we led on. I could just go on and on the duties of, it's called ADFA. ADFA has a lot of different things that they do. And so here we try to run all this with nothing, absolutely no records. And remember, I just ran off all the 6 leaders who ran the thing. I had to fire them. And so it was a really a very difficult situation. So for a year, I ran Arkansas Development Finance Authority, got it straight, got it back up on its feet, got it running right, and hired a guy named Rush Deacon, who was a bond attorney in Little Rock, who was very capable of doing that and should be there. And so he came in and took my position. But that was a very challenging year in my life, trying to get that straightened out.
So you were there for a year?
1 year. I told the governor, I didn't want the job. I just came in in a temporary position. And of course, then I went on to a very high-paying job. I became the golf coach at UCA.
That's my next question. So how did you happen?
And I got paid $1 a year. And you know what people said? I was overpaid. Well, what happened was, when I came back, I played golf every day. And Arch Jones was the athletic director at the time. He said, "Who do you play with?" And I said, "Nobody. There's nobody my age out here that's retired, so I don't have anybody to play with." And he said, "I think I got an idea. I've got you a team that you can play with every day." And he said, "Would you like to be the golf coach?" And he said, "But I want to tell you, there is no money in it. There's nothing. We have no budget. We have nothing." My first year, it cost me $30,000 to be the golf coach. Because I didn't have a budget. So the next year they said, "Okay, now you got to start the women's program." I said, "I can't afford it." But anyway, we started the program up, and I did work it. I worked extremely hard, and I see in the back room every day, Brenda Gonzalez is here from Mexico. Thank you, Brenda, for coming. But what I started doing was recruiting internationally, because I would ask Arkansas kids if you'd like to play for me, and the program was really in bad shape. And they would say no. I couldn't get anybody to talk to me. So having lived abroad, I knew the cultures, various cultures. So my first recruiting class was Paarl, South Africa, Santiago, Chile, and Manchester, England was my very first group. And we've continued to this day bringing in international players. But golf, I was the first to do it at UCA, first to bring in the internationals. No one did that before. And so it was a great idea. The kids didn't know that we weren't any good. They would say, only question they ever asked, "Is it cold?" Because they'd heard stories about Minnesota and places like that. I said, no, we're in the South. And they said, we'll come. So that's how I was able to recruit.
And you're still the coach, aren't you?
No, I'm not coach, but I work with them. Just like with Brenda, I'm out there with them all the time, playing with them, talking to them. Here's the way I explain it now. I said, I'm kind of like being their grandparent, where I can sit down and have long chats with them. Just like talking to her about, she's trying to make it on the LPGA right now. And there's another girl that I was with this week who we were talking about as a perfect 4-point, and who's helped her with her application and wrote to help a recommendation to go to Vanderbilt to get her master's in accounting. A perfect 4-point student. She'll do it. She'll do great. So I do a lot of things with that work. What I tell people is they get real interested in me about their senior year. Because that's when they realize they need a job. We need to talk to Bunny. They're freshman year, nah. But about that senior year, that's when they say, can we have lunch? And I go, yeah, I know what it's about. And a lot of times it's personal things. Right now, I'll be home tonight. When I get home, I'm going to write two young ladies had a fight with their boyfriend. And we're going to talk about it at length. We've been emailing back and forth.
I have a follow-up to that because, I mean, you're an incredible mentor. You've been a mentor to me. I mean, a lot of people seem to not have time to do things like that. And so how do you, is that part of your life important to you?
Yeah, it really is. And that's the reason that I hang out. We were laughing a while ago about hanging out over the Hyper Center over there, where I met this guy right here. So they're talking to him. People say, you work out at the Hyper Center. I said, I work out my mouth at the Hyper Center. I do more talking than I do working out. But I get to know people like him and all the other kids that are over there. I talk to them. And yeah, so many times they'll have problems. I had lunch yesterday with a young lady from Venezuela that's having lots and lots of problems. She can't go home. The country's just in turmoil. It's just a horrible situation. But she's on her 1-year visa. Doesn't know what's going to happen. Francisco, she wants to talk to you. I gave her your phone last night. She doesn't know what she's going to do. And so Claudette and I talk a lot about what she's going to do. So yeah, I spent a lot of time with young people, talking to them about their lives and where they're headed and what they want to do. And I enjoy that very, very much. Poor Carol, she gets drugged into it all the time. Because we're always, we've had kids live with us. We had a young lady from Texas who was very, very poor and who was on the golf team and lived with us for a summer. She had no place else to go. There just wasn't any place else for her to go. So she lived with us. So I'm always out working with young people, trying to help young people.
Well, it's really awesome. And even in our conversation the other day, I'm asking you random questions, taking notes on finances and everything else. So what else did you do at UCA besides the golf coach?
Well, after I was golf coach for 5 years, Lou Harden, who's the president, asked me if I'd take over the foundation. And it was a disaster. It was in horrible, horrible shape. They had let a lot of the accounts go bad, which you're not allowed to do that. I won't go into all the detail of it. I will tell you one thing, and I want y'all to take very careful note of this. It's something I did by accident, but it turned out to be a very, very valuable thing that I did. My first day, I walked in at noon and I sat down with the senior staff there at the foundation. I said, tell me your problems. At 6 o'clock, they were still talking. We had that many problems. We were about to lose our software, which had all the names, all the alums. And then foundation work, that's all you have to work with. We're about to lose all that because we hadn't paid in like a year. I hadn't paid our fees there. All kind of financial problems, just problems right and left, personnel problems, it just went on and on. That day at 6 o'clock, I started to quit. I was ready to get up and say, you can have it, Lou, this is too big a problem. Came back, let me tell you what I did though. I sat down, and that's when computers first came out, desktop computers. I wrote down everything I heard. I went back around to all the people and said, did I get this right? This is a problem, this is a problem. It was about 20 pages long. And they all said yes. Well, let me tell you what I did. Remember, I'm volunteering to do this, so I don't care if Lou fires me or not. So what I did is I mailed that memo to both all the directors, all the board members of the foundation, and to the board of trustees. Now let me tell you what that did. It told people this wasn't Bunny's problem. Now I learned in an organization, a lot of times you come into an organization, and y'all remember what I'm telling you, and you stay there for a little while, pretty soon it's your problem. You created it, it's your fault. Well, this way I told them all it wasn't mine. And the second thing, no one knew about these problems. They were all stunned when they got them. The third thing that happened, I started getting phone calls saying, let me help you. Rush Harding. That's when we bought Bear Village. Bear Village was his project. He and Al Crafton were building it. He said, you need cash, don't you? And I said, in the worst way. And what happened, Lou would go out and like go on a golfing outing, would send me the bills. Well, we didn't have any money, none. And I put in $10,000. I got Centennial Bank put in $10,000. Rush gave me $10,000, and that would just hold me temporarily. So what Rush said is buy Bear Village, okay? Tax-free bonds is how I can finance it. Turn around and lease it to the university for $100,000 a year more. And then that cleansed that money where it come in the foundation. See, it wasn't state money. I didn't have to meet state law, so I could use it to pay Lou's golfing bills and things like that. See, but that was one of the best things that I ever did, writing all that down and sending all that out. Because again, let it know, it wasn't my problem. I got a lot of people on board, got behind me to help me. And Herbie Branson called me from Fayetteville, an attorney, to help me with some problems I had. And just a lot of the other members of the board started calling and saying, let me help you, let me help you, let me help you. And we got that thing moving in the right direction. So now the foundation's doing great at UCA. But that was a very, very difficult task over there. Then I'd been there about 6, 7 months, and I get a phone call from Governor Huckabee. And he said, Frank White, who is at that time the state bank commissioner, is thinking about retiring. And everybody said it'd be appropriate for you to be the next bank commissioner because you worked for Frank overseas. You were his aide when he was governor. Y'all are close personal friends. And actually worked together. He was at First Commercial when our bank up here was affiliated with First Commercial. So we worked together there. We've been very, very good friends. He said, we think it's appropriate. And I thought, if this is another fix-up, I ain't doing it. I've already been through ADFA and now the foundation. I don't want any more of that. I said, can I think about this a couple of days? He said, yeah. So I picked up the phone and called a guy named Randy Dennis in Little Rock. You know who that is. And I said, Randy, is the bank department in trouble? And he called me back a few days later and he said, no, it's not in trouble at all. So I hung up, and the minute I did, the phone rang again, picked it up. Frank had just died of a massive heart attack. That spot. And I went, oh my gosh. And within 30 minutes, the governor called and said, I got to have an answer now. And I said, but Randy told me it was not any great problems in it, so I said, okay, I'll go do that. I'll tell you one thing, though, it's just a little touching. When I went down to make the acceptance speech, he said, we got to announce this immediately. And what was happening, a lot of politics. People calling and saying, I want the job, or a friend of mine wants a job, all these things. And he said, I got to announce it immediately. Can you get down there? And I said, yes, sir. I'll come down tomorrow, we'll announce it. So we go down, Carol and I are back in the back room in the governor's private quarters. We're getting ready to walk out to the public room. Very, very large crowd there, very large crowd for the announcement. And just as I started to walk through, he grabbed me by the arm and said, you do know Gay White's going to be here. That's the Governor White's wife. We had just buried him the day before. And I said, what? He said, she's here for your announcement. I said, okay. I got out there. I did great. And then I talked about what Frank meant to me. I looked at her, had eye contact, and I lost it. I cried like a baby, I'm telling you. Thank goodness Huckabee is a former Baptist minister. Because I turned to him and just put my arms around him and started crying on his shoulder. And he said, you're going to be fine. You get back up there. Get back up there. You're going to do it. You're going to be all right. But I lost it that day. I'll tell you, that was very, very emotional when I looked up and saw her standing there that day. And we had just buried Frank the day before. And so, but anyway, I served in there for 4 years as state bank commissioner, regulated all the banks in Arkansas. It was a great learning experience. I got to go to every community, spent a lot of time in all the different towns in Arkansas, and got to know all the bank presidents and all the bankers across the state. So I enjoyed doing that very, very much. But, and Governor Beebe, I served 1 year under him. He asked me to stay on another 4 years, and I said, no, if I'm going to be back at Centennial, I've got to come back now. I'm getting too old, so I said, I got to come back. So I would not accept another term.
Okay. So I have a note here that your office is right there.
Yeah, I own this building, by the way.
You do?
That's another funny story. Can I tell it real quick?
Yeah, go
All
ahead.
right. What happened is I owned stuff downtown, and so I'm sitting out here about 3 years ago at Toad Set Days, and Brad Lacey is there. I said, Brad, I want to buy something downtown. Is there anything for sale? He said, nothing for sale. And I looked right over his shoulder at this building. I said, what about this? And he said, oh, I forgot about that. It's coming up for sale Monday. Well, that was Saturday. Monday morning, 10 o'clock, I stood right back there where those doors are and bought the building. Bought it right then. Okay, 2 days later, Brad Lacey, who's also on the board of trustees at UCA, talking to Tom Courtway. Courtway said, Brad, I got this great idea. What is it? And he said, I got my eyes on this building downtown. And, well, we could buy it. We could put UCA. Brad couldn't keep a straight face. He said, oh, I tell you, but Bunny bought it 2 days ago. Oh, he was mad. Oh, he was mad. So he called me screaming. He said, give it to me. I said, I'm not giving you the building, Tommy. I'm not going to do it. But what we finally did, I said, why don't you, I can't use the whole thing. Let me cut it in half. And that's when I built this wall. And I said, you take half of it for downtown UCA. I'll take half of it for my office, and it'll work. And later I talked to the trustees, and they were glad that I did it. They didn't want to own it for fear of what if it didn't work. And then this thing was empty, and the public could see it empty all the time. So the trustees were glad that they rented it. So they rented it, and it's worked out very well.
I mean, it's like full circle right now. That's crazy. But so every time I walk by, you're working. And my question is, are you ever going to retire? Or
No, Brenda tell you I don't work all the time. I play golf with Brenda a lot.
Okay.
But I tell you what we do is Carol and I come down most nights and work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we come down here after, we'll go out and eat something and come down and work at night. So I don't know, I think part of it is being raised by parents who were depression scarred, you know, and I mean, that's the way I was raised. We had wholesale grocery, we had a distributorship, and we opened the first grain business. We bought the first load of soybeans in the South, in all the southern states down there, which was in 1953, 1954. And so when I would get out of school, I'd go to the grain elevator in the fall. This time of year, I would be working from now to midnight. And then I'd go home, sleep, get up, and I was a band, and we band practice at 6 in the morning. And so I'd go practice at band and then go to school all day, go to work at the elevator all night. It's all I knew was work. And so, and I'm not about to sit there and tell you it's a healthy thing. It's not. It's not a good way to spend your life. But it's the way my father was raised, the way he did things. My mother was that way. It's all we knew.
So follow up to that, if you look back to your incredible professional path, what do you attribute that success to?
Ooh, a lot of it's that lady right there. Carol, help me.
When I was 16 years old, $1 an hour was the minimum wage. And I would get off the school bus and then take another bus and go uptown and work at the 5 to 9 kind of place till 9 o'clock, and then take the bus back home and do that. So I did that all through school, high school. And then I thought, well, I guess I'll go down to Virginia and live with my grandparents. And so I worked for an office there. And then I thought, I think maybe it's time for you to start college. And I'm 30 miles away, go to this college, girls' school it was, but it was a state teacher's college. Where my grandmother had gone and got my degree there. I thought, well, I'll just teach high school. I said, well, what do you think about grad school? I said, because I'm broke. I've been here on state teacher scholarship and working part-time. And I said, no, if I get a scholarship, apply here and there. Harvard said, we'd love to have you, but we don't have any money to give up. But we're sure you can come up and get a job and go to school. I said, I don't know. And then they said, well, apply for this school in Texas. I said, okay. Nacogdoches, Texas. I don't know where this place is, how to spell it or pronounce it. Got on my first airplane. I took a plane to Shreveport, which I didn't know where that was either, and took a bus from there to Nacogdoches, and they gave me a job working there, and the scholarship to get my degree, master's degree there. So, you know, we've done all of this all through our lives. We're seriously working.
Yeah, she wasn't born rich, obviously. Put herself through school, got her education, came back, taught.
So talk about, so you're on the board of trustees for UCA,
Yes.
and you're also on the board for Conway Development Corporation.
Yes.
So what do you see for the future of Conway and UCA?
I see a very bright future for both, and for a lot of reasons. One is the leadership, and I attribute that to you and Jeff, the things that y'all are doing. We got people like y'all who are thinking outside the box. I mean, you go to other towns in Arkansas, you're not going to find this. You're just not going to go to McGee. Okay, you're not going to find, what you're doing, And so that's a part of it. You have people who are thinking outside the box. Look around town at all the new little startups that we've got. And I started to name them, but I can't even name all of them. But like Matova and others like that are all over this community now. The little startup companies that are tech-oriented, that are coming about that we're all benefiting from. And I think that's going to continue to grow. The university is rock solid. We have great leadership out there at this time, doing a really good job. I don't know if you saw the freshman class this year was up for the first time in 3 or 4 years. And that's a great thing. We're over 2,000 coming in. A little side note that I didn't realize, ASU only had 1,400 freshmen. We had 2,000. I always thought ASU was bigger than us and everything, and they're not. And so our undergraduate program, we're bigger than ASU. We're one of the second largest school in the state of Arkansas in our undergraduate program. So UCA is doing a great job, bringing in a lot of bright kids coming in here, getting their degrees. Let's be honest, the freeway helps us a lot. You know, it does. It's the proximity where people can work in Little Rock. You now have 6-lane highway to get up and down. They're just, you know, we built a new airport now out near the river. So you have all these benefits. You see the old airport, the development out there. You saw Burkhalter announced he's going to build some super new condos. I mean apartments that are going to go out there. Dillard's is expecting very strong interest in coming up there, being out there. We've got a lot of motels and fast foods that would like to be in that area out there. So there's just a lot of good things going on in Conway that I think that is going to mean it's going to be a very, very bright future.
Awesome, and thank you so much for saying that. What do you think, I know that you and I have had multiple conversations about education. What do you think about the state of education in Conway, especially with all of our colleges and how that plays into the future?
It's extremely important, obviously. And you and Jeff especially know the tech sector better than I do. But I think some of y'all know that Matova has an office on the UCA campus. I mean, do you realize that the highest dropout rate we have out there is IT? And you know why? They're lured away. We'll have kids out there who are doing good in IT, and these companies will come into them and say, I'll pay you $80,000 to come to go to work for me. And they say, adios, UCA, I'm out of here. And they're gone. And that's an area where we can't keep them in because they're getting job offers. But what a great problem to have. So education is vitally important. It is one of the reasons that we've grown. Throughout the years, people have come here to go to Conway Public Schools. I mean, I've talked to multiple people who wanted to be a part of this community. One of the things, I'll tell you a quick story. Years ago, a guy called me, he was in Little Rock, and he said, my wife would like to come up there. She has a PhD, and she'd like to teach in the public school system. And I said, not a problem, I'm sure we get her a job. I called Ray Simon, a dear friend of mine, and I said, Ray, I know you're building a new grade school out on the east side of town. He said, it's true. And I told him the story, and he said, well, Bunny, I got 70 applicants. And I went, no big deal, 70 applicants. And I said, I don't understand why that would slow things up. He said, you didn't hear me. I have 70 applicants for every position. Well, holy moly. That's how bad people want to be here. So the schools can sit and take their pick of whoever they want to be their teachers. You know, you're not forced just to take anybody who walks through the door. 70 applicants for every position at that grade school out there. So that's the reason you have such super schools. Anthony, you told me a story the other day about people moving in out there on the west side of town because of the schools. Anthony has got a bunch of real estate. And he said somebody called me the other day and they want to be out on that west side. I guess it's Woodrow Cummins and Ruth Doyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the two best grade schools.
Yeah, and the best schools. And people wanted to come from out of state, out of town, wanted to move in here, know about our school system. And want to say, does that answer your question about education?
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so, yeah.
We've got Hendricks and CBC.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I ate lunch today at Hendricks, and boy, that's good food, I'll tell you.
So, okay, I have a couple more questions and I'll open it up. Looking back at your 26-year-old self, what would you tell him as far as advice or things to look out for and things to do differently?
Holy moly. Well, I don't know. I don't, because I've got to be, you have to think about these things. You and I talked earlier, there were failures. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there weren't. And I will tell you this, and I do not want to get into this because I will get very emotional. That getting fired in Brussels hurt. It really, really hurt. And I wasn't prepared for it. Governor Clinton had told me that I'm keeping my job, I'm going to stay there, I'm to be the guy in Brussels. And then on inauguration day, I got a call and I was fired. I wasn't ready for it. And so that was very, very, very painful. But there's a lot of learning that comes with that pain. And I learned a lot from that. Again, by then I'm 29 years old. So I'm still very young, but I'm going through very, very difficult times in my life. And we had to come back here. And let me tell you another thing, and again, I don't want to get too far off on this. Governor Clinton put the word out, none of us will have jobs, will not be hired in Arkansas. I couldn't get a job. You understand what I said? I had a friend of mine here in Conway call two of the banks in Little Rock. Both the banks had asked me to be in correspondent banking for them and had really tried hard to hire me. He called me back in Brussels and said, not only do they not have a job for you, they'd appreciate it if you wouldn't even walk into the bank. Because if the governor sees you in there, he'll blackball them. No one in Arkansas is going to hire you. No one's going to touch you. That was painful, folks. I mean, I went through some depression.
So how did you overcome that? Clearly in a major way you overcame it.
First of all, I had to go into sales and to be a commissioned salesperson because no one would hire me. Nobody would give me a job. And so I had to do that. And I was there for a year. And when I went into it, I remember the first month, I didn't sell a thing. I sat there waiting for people to come in because Bunny's famous, and they didn't come in. And by the end of the term I was there, I set every record of sales I'd ever had.
And have a wife and a baby.
Yeah, Hillary was born. I had to go to work. I had to make a living. I had to pay for her. I just had to suck it up. It wasn't easy. Let me tell you something. Can you imagine trying to sell when you're depressed? That's really hard. And it was a very, very, very difficult time for me. But I worked through it. And I'll tell you when the pain went away. This is going to sound very funny, kind of self-centered. The night Bill Clinton was defeated. And I saw him stand there and cry. The pain went away.
Wow.
Because he's the one who had done it to me. And I'd done it back to him.
Wow. So, and my last question about this, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this. Talk about the power and importance of relationships and how that intersects with business.
That has a lot to do with it, a tremendous amount to do with it. Well, and you know what I'm about to say here, banking, everything, it's everything in banking. I could pick on you right now and say this. But go ahead, all right. We hire people. It's just like, another bank hired him away. I don't know why they did it. His relationships. And so that's how we built today when we started. We would bring this loan officer over, and this loan officer, and this loan officer. People don't do business with a brick wall. They do business with people. And in banking, that is extremely important. Because when you walk in that office and sit down with a stranger, and I've been on that side of it, and you sit down and say, well, I'm going to need 3 years tax returns. I'm going to need 3 years of financials, income statement, balance sheet. I'm going to need this and do that. You go, oh my God, I'll be forever filling all this. And they don't know you, and they interview you forever and all that. Okay, now just think about that. Now think about the person that you know really, really well, and that person moves across the street to the other bank. You're going to go with him. Because you walk in and he says, hey, buddy, how you doing? I said, listen, I need to borrow $10,000. He said, write the check. Yeah, we can do it. That's not a problem because he knows me. And so that's the reason he got pulled away from where he was over to another. And I understand that completely. And it's the same thing we did with the people that we. So relationships mean everything. Just mean everything. So it's so vitally important that you form those relationships. And again, in banking, you got a guy sitting there with a $50 million loan portfolio, and another bank takes him away, you're going to lose those loans. Most of those loans are going to go with that person when he goes to the new bank. You can try to keep them, but more than likely you're not, because those customers are going to follow that relationship.
I like it. Okay, I'm done with the questions. Who wants to start?
Right here.
Oh, Daniel.
All right. So, Bunny, you and you've been I have two things I'm going to add. One is every time I see you with Carol. And to me, that's a beautiful thing because I'm a very driven and busy man. And so I wonder if you could give some advice on how, as a driven young married man, how I can add my family along into the things that I do. That's the first question. And the second question is, you're also, because of the success you've had, I run a nonprofit in town, and your family's been very generous to our nonprofit. So what would it look like, what can you tell entrepreneurs or people who are pursuing in business, what's the importance of giving back? So those are two
That's a good
questions.
question. Now, what was the first question?
You're always with Carol.
Oh, yeah.
How do I do that?
Well, let me say now, the first part of the marriage wasn't that way. Because it's like in Europe. I mean, I traveled all over Europe, and I left her there in Brussels with a brand new baby there, and so she struggled a lot with my travel. I mentioned a while ago my traveling when I was a lobbyist for President Reagan. Left Sunday at noon, came back Friday night. She was there by then, and Ashton was born. So had 2 kids to raise. So a lot of it she's had to do on her own. She was very strong. She's a very independent person. When we first got married, like she would do a lot of things at the university. I'd be involved at the bank. We'd go separate ways. But we had a lot of commonalities where we could sit down at the table at night and say, let's do this. That year as SJC president, I was never home. Because I mean, I may be in Jonesboro one night, I may be in Siloam Springs the next night, Texarkana the next, and I may get home at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the bank won't be there at 8 the next morning. So I'd go work all day, take off and travel. So there was a lot of time there that I wasn't at home. So let me be fair about that. But in the later,
daycare person, our son was going to school, said, does your husband ever play games with Ashton? He never talks about him. He always talks about his sister and his mother. He never talks about his dad. He's not home much.
I wasn't home much, so I was gone a lot. So to answer that one, so yeah, now that we got that behind us, now we can spend a little more time together. So that my father is who influenced me into giving. I have a cousin that's an estate tax attorney. He said it this way: the perfect estate is when you die without a penny. You've given everything away. And that's when my father died. He gave to creating the Boys and Girls Club in McGee. Paid for it all, 100% of it. And I watched him give over time. And I realized the importance of giving. And so what we've done is we've created a family foundation, which you're familiar with. And someday that foundation is going to be worth, I think, a great deal of money. I'm going to be very honest with y'all. I shouldn't tell this stuff. Everybody tell me I should, but I'm going to share some secrets with you. What I've done, I have trust for Hillary and trust for my son. Okay, and I think they're adequately cared for. And so at my death, all the assets that Carol and I have at our death will flow into the family foundation. And with what this stock has done, it's going to be a considerable amount of money. And all that I've set up, Matt Barnhart, CPA, is the president of it. Bo Wilcox is on the board of it. Some of y'all know Bo. And basically, I have told them, and I've written it in the document, I want all the money to stay in Conway. So at our demise, there's going to be a lot of money that'll be there. And under the law today, you've got to give 6% of it away in a family foundation. So there's going to be a great deal of money that will be given back to all the charities here, because that's what I want to go for, just like what you're doing.
Yeah.
No, you're doing a great job. I appreciate what you're doing.
As you're saying, as an investor and as someone that sits on the board of trustees at UCA, and as you invest, as you raise money for the university through relationships and whatnot,
Yes.
how do you deal with the ask of for money from people, and how do you expect that to come to yourself as running your own foundation?
I'm kind of glad you asked that, because that is getting to be a burden. It really is. It's more and more what people ask. Right now, I'm deflecting a lot of it to Matt, the CPA. And he's young, energetic. And I picked him and Bo out because they're the same age as Hillary. And I made sure I got the next generation. So that when Carol and I go, the next generation will be there. And the same thing I would encourage him to do when we're gone. He starts looking for more board members, pick out more younger people that'll come in. But that's one thing. I'm sending more and more of them to Matt when they ask for gifts. to let him handle it, to do that. So does that answer the question?
Well, yes, but like, how do you, as someone that does give away money and someone that asks for money, how do you basically use that knowledge to, like, on UCA's behalf?
Okay.
Or on any other organization's behalf where you're asking for found?
Well, one of the things that having done this for many, many years like that, having been in business here for many, many years, I can pretty much cut through really quick what's real and legit and what's not. And so I'll get a lot of people, and what you do, you can ask about 5 or 6 questions. Like, what are your plans to do this? What are your plans to do that? When you start getting that, I hadn't really thought about that. And we're not going there. Now, if I get somebody like him who says, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, do this, do this, he knows what he's doing, knows where he's headed, I wanna be a part of that.
It's not gonna go for the light bill.
Do what?
It's not gonna go for the light bill.
Well, whatever, yeah. No. And, yeah, what I don't give to operations of the business. But like, if he's gonna build a new house or something, or remodel his office, I like to give to that. And I'll tell you why I don't do that. Years ago, I was giving to an organization, and they started depending on my gifts. And then I said, well, I'm gonna move and start giving to this organization. Well, these people got mad at me. They hated me because I took that money away and started giving it elsewhere. And I learned that, you know, I didn't gain a friend, I gained an enemy by giving them money. And so that's what I say today, and that's what Hood was referring to. I won't give to their operational money, like their salaries and so forth. But if they got a new project, yeah, count me in.
Because they become dependent.
They become too dependent.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Did you have a question?
I have a comment and a question. You're just so personable and open and genuine, and it's really stunning. But your projects have been more of a blessing in my life than you have any idea. Centennial Bank has been the best bank I've ever worked with, and Bear Village I spent.
Did you hear that?
I've never had a single issue, never had a single problem. Centennial's been really great, and it all came around when I had an emergency student loan check from UCA, and I didn't have my driver's license, and I couldn't afford one without cashing it. And I just had my social security and my UCA ID, and no other bank would let me cash that check. But they're like, no, you need this. We'll write down your social, we'll write down your UCA ID, and we'll cash this. And I spent years in Bear Village turning my life around, like 3.5 years in Bear Village, and I don't know where I'll be without that. I didn't expect to cry, but I am. So I guess my one question, just to throw a question in there, when you were telling the story about the CFO that ran off with all the records, was there no legal recourse there? Was there nothing?
What you say about
The CFO who left one of the records from Adcock.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's nothing I could do because I couldn't prove he had them. He later called me back. He called me in about 6 months. He said, if you'll hire me back, I'll bring the records. I hired you back. And he was part of that division that where they were fighting with each other. And so, no. I said, I'm not bringing any of those people back because there's too much hurt and pain bringing one in. Like that side wins and this side loses. Now I don't want to go through that. So I got that resolved. But, well, let me say this. Now, banks make mistakes, okay? And I'll tell you something I always did as a business development officer. And you don't be listening to this now. Don't be listening to me. In business development, I'd always take someone with me. Always take someone with me. And the reason is before cell phones is because we do make mistakes. And the reason I always had 2 people is in case you couldn't reach me, you could reach that other person at the bank. Because I said, if you ever get mad, you call me. And boy, I've had it happen. Woo, I know you have too. Where something's happened, the customer's mad. But if you can't reach me, call that other person. So I always had 2 of us. We all made sure we had the cards. One of the biggest accounts I ever got, FMC Corporation, was over that. Can I give one sales pitch here? All right, I'll tell y'all a little sales story. What happened, I took a guy named Gary Wells to lunch, year. I never gave up, okay? On any account, never would. And my president used to say, you're the stupidest person I've ever met. You're so hard-headed, you just don't give up. You're never gonna get that account. And every year, Gary would say, Bunny, the people of FMC, which is a giant Fortune 500 company out in California, worship Mr. Wilson, who was my competitor. And they're never going to move, ever. Every year I give him my card and I say, put that card in the back of your desk. If there's ever a mistake, you call me. One afternoon I get a phone call from Gary. He said, how fast can you get down here to move our accounts? I said, I can be there in 30 minutes. I ran downstairs, I got Becky Tittle, I said, don't ask me because I can't tell you anything, I don't know anything, just go with me. We go out there, walk in the boardroom, there are all the employees, all the officers of the company sitting in there. He said, when you get to open the company account, many of these people want to open their personal accounts with you. So we got it all done, finally got them out of there. Finally, everybody's gone, Becky's gone back to the bank, and I can ask him, I said, Gary, what happened? He said, I'm building a new house out west of town. I said, yeah, I know, it's a beautiful home. He said, well, Monday I took off work to put in a yard. And it dawned on me that I had not drawn money out of my line of credit to cover the check I'd written for the solace shop. So I got out to the bank and I am wearing big coveralls. And he said, I have got mud all over me. No FMC logo on here. But he said, I look just terrible. And I walk in at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. He's still sitting there. No one's waiting. 4 o'clock. Finally, somebody walks up and says, somebody, do you want something? And he said, yes, ma'am, I'm Gary Wells, and I'm Vice President of FMC Corporation, and I need to draw my line. She said, if we knew you were a reporter, we would have waited on you. Got it all.
You gotta plant those seeds.
You just don't give up. You just don't give up.
But that surely is like the hardest centennial, like y'all are just so open
I
and
appreciate it.
equal to everyone, and like, I just thank you for every project you've been involved with in this entire city. You make a
Thank you.
difference in lives.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you saying that.
I got chills. One more question. Okay, yeah, you first.
You talked about a lot of your struggles and things that you went through. What was it that kept you going and made you not want to give up or stop when you could have?
What that I would not want to give up that kept me going through that, is that correct? Well, of course, as I mentioned earlier, having Carol with me here, my faith, we were talking about New Life Church. My faith helped me a lot. Matter of fact, my faith meant a lot to me when I lost that job in Brussels. That was a time where I kind of reached down and called back on my faith, on my Christian beliefs that kind of helped me through that time period through there. I can't talk a lot about that. I'll get too emotional talking about this. But yeah, when you go through those kind of types of stuff, having friends, I think to reach out to, help some. And that's one of the things I always want to do is be there for other people. And I've had that conversation sitting at the table right over there on a number of occasions where people come in that are hurting. And I can tell them I've been there. I know what you're going through. I've been in your position. Things will get better. They'll get better. I know you're hurting right now, but things will get better. And so your family, your faith, I think those are the things that you reach back on during those hard times.
Great, Jason. Last question.
I just had a comment, it's not a question. No, I've been back in this community for about 5 years, and I just wanted to say, as I've gotten involved in the nonprofit world, I can't turn around without seeing the impact that you and your family and your foundation have made. And I just want to publicly thank you, because that to me, that will probably be, with everything that you've done and all the politics and the banking and all the people that you've helped, I think that will probably be your most endearing legacy.
Thank you.
Is what you did.
I appreciate you saying that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason, that was a perfect note to end on, but I always end on the same question. Bunny, what is one piece of business advice you would leave us with tonight?
Business?
Mm-hmm. Business or life?
Oh, my. Well, one, as you've heard me say, don't give up. There are a lot of you young people sitting in this room, and you've got dreams and you've got aspirations. Follow those dreams. Go out there and pursue them. And work. And that's the reason I commend you for what you're doing. You and listen, I have sent a half dozen people to see Jeff Sandridge, and I'm going to tell you what, he is super. I mean, I have sent people in there because I talked to them and said, I don't know what to tell you. Go see Jeff. And Jeff will sit down with them and say, y'all do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. He is so good at that. He is just super. And so, if you have a dream, go pursue it, just like all these other people that I mentioned earlier are doing in Conway today. They're pursuing their dreams. and go for it, try your best, try to make those things happen. And I would say that, you know, I'll tell you, it was great. Years ago, I used to come home Friday nights to watch AETN, and there was a guy on there by the name of Dr. Joseph Campbell. He was a great educator, and he would talk about and explain why we do the things we do today. He was an anthropologist, and he would say, now this happened, you know, in the year 400. People did this, and from that, we learned this, and we gathered this, and we did this. We go on and on and on. Bill Moyers was interviewing him one night, and he said, Dr. Campbell, I have a question. And boy, I mean, I really was riveted when he asked him. He said, you know, what do you tell your students when they come in and ask you what to do with their lives? What do you tell them? He said, follow your bliss. That was it. Do what makes you happy. And if you're not happy doing what you're doing now, move. I mean, you saw me, I've had 15 different jobs. You know? So if you're not happy, go do what makes you happy. But I enjoyed that work at the bank and business development work. I enjoyed it every day. I loved doing it. It was fun. So follow your bliss.
Awesome. Well, Buddy, thank you so much. To echo all the sentiment, you are an incredible person.
Thank you.
Definitely a mentor. It's an honor to be here with you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. And guys, next month, Daniel Tyler is going to share his story. He's the founder of Deliver Hope. So we will see you there next month. Thank you again, Buddy.
You bet.